Hey, Salvage Labs team, welcome along to our weekly review. So, going to stick solely to crypto today. So, no macro views, other than just touching on inflation came in under expectations. Okay, so that sets us up for potentially a good next 3 to 4 weeks. Okay, so starting with Bitcoin, here we go. So we had that high volume down day earlier in the week, and that was the day leading before the inflation announcement. People just trying to cover themselves and hedge either way. High volume, and then the next day, not only did it close green, but it closed above the open of that. So that was what we call a bullish engulfing candle. Followed up the next day by a not so bullish candle with this shooting star candle, but again we followed up the next day with green. So I think there's a little bit of selling pressure here, but it doesn't mean that we're going down. It could be that the buyers are starting to absorb that all up. So Bitcoin wise, overall, I'm looking pretty happy. So this is on the daily time frame. We're still respecting this trend line here. Okay, it is a sharper one than this one. So the sharper the trend line, the less significant. But in terms of this, it does have about a month worth on it. So it is still a significant trend line, but this one here, which goes back longer and isn't quite so steep, would be more significant to break. And that would lead to a lot more downside if we did that. We've also been bouncing off the stop hump pattern here. So you can see since we went below here and went back above, we haven't got closed below it. We've bounced off it, and then we've built this trend forming up here. So at the moment, Bitcoin's looking pretty bullish. Okay, at least for the next, I'd say, couple of weeks, leading through maybe to mid to end of September, and then we'll reassess then. Weekly, we've got a good amount of buying volume after having one red week. Okay, so looking pretty good there as well. Now let's shift our focus to Ethereum. Just find the right chart for you. Again, Ethereum did have a green week last week. We were trending down on volume, but we've got that spike up in volume again. So on the weekly for Ethereum, looking good. Let's go to the daily again. Okay, so again, we've had this trend line. We pretty much didn't close below it. We've bounced below it and closed back above. So again, we've got that strong trend in place. Price is pushing higher. The only thing that I'm starting to worry about, well, not even worry about, but maybe look for an entry on a shorter term trade is if we get another day that's green on lower volume. Okay, might be potentially that the buyers for now have run out of steam and we could get a push back down. Okay, and that would be a good opportunity to potentially enter into a trade if that is what you wish to do so. And you may recall, if you watched our first video on after the rebrand, that we were looking for a 2,100 to 2,300 ETH. Okay, and if you look at that, what's the highest we've pushed to so far? 2,020. So we're pretty close. Okay, and that doesn't mean that 2,100 to 2,300 is the highest it will go. Quite often markets do like to overshoot as well. Okay, so we could go higher. Could even potentially come back to these levels here, right around 24. Okay, potentially up to 28, where there's been some supports and resistances in the past. So that's something to keep an eye on. Cool. We put out a poll, got a couple of requests to check out certain coins. First one was Matic. Now, if you look at Matic on the weekly, it's pretty strong, right? So we've had a big bounce from bottom to where we are currently. We're sitting at 240%. Okay, on the weekly, had that effort candle, and it had a bullish engulfing candle on the next one too. So not only did this high volume not succeed on the next week, but it got fully retraced, which was a strong sign. And then as we've moved up, we've had high effort and we've had follow through. So on the longer time frames for Matic are looking pretty strong. Okay, but in saying that, we need to find a right time to buy if this is something that we want to buy. So we've broken through that downtrend on that high volume up on the weekly. If we zoom in a little bit more to the daily, okay, bear with me. Again, if we draw in a trend line, okay, so we've got that longer time trend line. So quite far off it. So we could easily find at some point, even when further along the line, that it comes down to test this. And then we've got a shorter trend line, which we would have broken through. Okay, so to me, that's probably not a valid trend line. Might be better off using something like this, where we had that last little stop off before we pushed up. And that is quite a long candle, so I'll probably go there. So that's something to keep an eye on for Matic. Okay, we would look for this daily candle to close green because we've got that effort. And if we don't, then we've had back-to-back effort candles that haven't followed through. So that could likely indicate a potential test back down to the 90-cent level or back down to the 80-cent level, depending on how long it takes to correct. So for me, this probably wouldn't be one that I am looking to stack up on long term. It could be a potential trade, because my theory is around October, November, we are going to get a push down to either close to the lows we've had or right to the lows that we had. But we can address that as we get closer to the time. And then the other coin we had come up was ApeCoin. So this is the coin for the Bored Ape Yacht Club ecosystem. Cool. So we'll zoom out a little bit to the weekly first, and then we'll come back into the daily. So again, it's moved quite well from the bottom to where we are now. Okay, 127% up to the peak, about 160%. Now, to me, this on the weekly is probably close to a clear one wave, and we come back down. I'd probably be looking for an entry around the mid $5 level for probably even a longer term move up. Purely the reason I'm looking for the sell-off is they've done some partnerships with other projects in the NFT space, and these projects got airdropped ApeCoin. So there's going to be some selling pressure, and there's also going to be an unlock from early investors as well. So for me, around the $5 to $5.50 level would be a good entry. And you can see that there's some support through that level where we tried to push down, and then we had a big buying candle up. So around that level would be a good entry if you wanted to go for a larger move on ApeCoin. I could probably easily see this coming back to test around that level there. Or if we zoom out on the weekly to see where resistances are. Okay. That's about the $8 level. You could easily see it come back up to about that $10 to $11 level where we had a little bit of support before we push back down on this bearish push. Okay, so to me, in terms of long-term buys, there's not a whole lot out there right now. In terms of like shorter term plays, if you're looking to like get in and then take some profit on it and look to buy in lower, there's potential on Matic coming up and ApeCoin. Just need to be patient. Okay, don't chase the market. In terms of Bitcoin, we're at the point where it could break out, so there could be a trade to play there and look for that move up to 28. And then same with Ethereum. If it comes back down probably to around the 1800 to 1850, we could be positioning ourselves for another push up to around that 2500 mark. So testing up this bottom level here. Okay, so just confirm on the daily. So up here, maybe test back down to around that $1750, $1800 mark, and then push back up for a higher level. So to me, at the moment, we're just waiting for confirmations, or in terms of testing trend lines, and then that we have strength at those trend lines. So for me, I'm still sitting on the sidelines. Okay, we had a good call the other day that if inflation came under expectations that we would rise up. At the time, Bitcoin was under 23K, so it's had a bit of a rise, and Ethereum was around 1600. So if you could have got in there, you had a nice trade opportunity, okay, of 20%, which would have been a good little scalp trade. So keep following us for our views on the market, but like anything in this space, it's not financial advice. This is just for education purposes, okay? Always do your research into the coins, and then make sure you're happy with your purchases. All right, we'll catch you guys next week for the next weekly edition.